Hey guys, sorry for the irregular uploads. I haven't been able to keep my promise in the last few weeks of this year. Let's change that. From next year, I will be uploading every week. I haven't yet decided a day, but I think from my next tape, I'll finally decide weekly a schedule. Please enjoy this slow burn horror story. I didn't notice it at first because nothing about that night felt unusual. That's the part that bothers me the most now. The way something can enter your life so gently that your mind refuses to label it as a threat. I live alone, far enough from the city that the silence feels earned. No neighbors close enough to hear, no traffic hum, just the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you're aware of your own breathing. I'd always liked that. It made the nights feel honest. The sound came sometime after midnight, not loud enough to wake me, but persistent enough to slip into my dreams. A low, irregular vibration, almost like wind forcing itself through a narrow space, except there was no wind that night. When I woke, I lay still, listening. The sound wasn't outside. It wasn't inside either. It felt adjacent, as if the air itself had learned a new way to move. I told myself it was tinnitus, or fatigue, or one of those strange noises your house makes when the temperature shifts. The explanations were comforting because they required nothing from me. But when I stood up, the sound changed. Not louder, not quieter. It adjusted, like it was aware of my movement. That was the first moment I felt something tighten in my chest, a subtle reaction, easy to ignore. I walked through the house, checking rooms, opening windows, stepping outside barefoot onto the cold ground. The sound followed, not spatially, but attentively. Wherever I focused, it seemed to gather. I remember laughing softly to myself, nervous humor, the kind you use to reassure an empty room. By morning, the sound was gone. The daylight washed everything clean, and I felt embarrassed for how unsettled I'd been. I went about my day convinced it had been nothing. That night, though, when the lights were off and the silence returned, the sound came back. And this time, it wasn't alone. It's difficult to explain what changed without making it sound dramatic. Nothing overt happened, no shadows moved, no objects shifted. The world remained intact. That's what made it worse. The sound became more structured, still faint, still restrained, but no longer random. It pulsed in intervals, never repeating exactly, but always close enough to feel intentional, like something learning how to speak without understanding language. I started noticing patterns elsewhere, too. The stars outside my bedroom window seemed wrong. Not missing exactly, but subtly misaligned. Constellations I'd known since childhood looked stretched, as if viewed through warped glass. I downloaded an astronomy app to confirm I was imagining it. The app insisted everything was normal. My sleep deteriorated. Not from nightmares, but from a growing sense of anticipation. I would lie awake, waiting, not for something to happen, but for something to notice me again. I became hyper-aware of my thoughts, afraid they were no longer private. Certain ideas felt heavier, as if lingering too long attracted attention. The sound reacted to those thoughts. When my mind wandered, it faded. When I focused, really focused, it sharpened. I tested it reluctantly. I thought of nothing. It dulled. I imagined the sound as something separate from me. It intensified. I stopped testing after that. Days passed. I avoided mirrors because my reflection felt delayed, not visually, but emotionally, like the person looking back was waiting for instructions. I caught myself standing still for long periods, listening, breathing shallowly, afraid movement might signal something I didn't understand. One evening, during a power outage, the sound reached a new depth. Not louder, closer. It felt embedded in the room, vibrating through the walls, the floor, my teeth. I realized then that it wasn't a sound at all. It was a pressure, a presence interacting with perception rather than matter. And it was patient. I think the worst part is knowing this didn't start with me. Once that thought took hold, I couldn't let it go. The patterns weren't responses. They were calibrations, adjustments. The sound wasn't following me. It was studying the limits of how I noticed things. Late one night, I had a realization that felt less like a thought and more like something being placed gently into my mind. The presence didn't exist somewhere else. It wasn't above or beyond. It occupied a layer of reality that brushed against ours the way thoughts brush against sleep, intimately, briefly, and without permission. I understood then why it was subtle. Anything obvious would frighten us into looking away. This thing, they, perhaps, didn't need to arrive. They had always been here, overlapping us, observing the way we organize meaning, sound, memory, expectation. They weren't interested in bodies or buildings. They were interested in attention, in awareness. I think I became useful when I noticed them back. Now when the sound comes, it doesn't feel foreign. It feels familiar, almost comforting, like being recognized after a long time alone. Sometimes I catch myself leaning into it, letting my thoughts slow, simplify. When I do, the pressure eases, and I feel aligned. That scares me more than anything. I don't know if I'm being observed anymore, or if I'm being prepared. I've stopped trying to explain it to myself. Language fails too quickly. Concepts slip. I'm writing this because I've started to forget what the silence used to feel like. If you're reading this late at night, in the quiet, and you notice a faint pressure where sound should be, don't focus on it. Don't try to understand it. Some things don't want to be seen. They want to be noticed.